All right, hello everyone. Welcome. So as you all continue to enter, I'm going to give it about a minute just to let the other attendees in. While we wait, however, can you all let us know where you're tuning in from? All right, so we have Queens, New York. Brooklyn. Hello from Taiwan. Chicago. Hello, New Jersey. Texas. Hello from Portland. We have Astoria, Queens, Virginia, Nashville, Harlem. One of the most exciting thing about hosting these is to see how incredibly international the audience is who tunes into our webinars. Hello, Portland. All right, so as more people enter, I'm going to jump in and start before we introduce our guests. So again, hello everyone. I'm Carly Ann with the Parsons Entrepreneur Academy. I would like to thank you all for joining us this evening as we continue our monthly office hour series where we invite successful and inspiring entrepreneurs and leaders to share their stories and the lessons they've learned along the way. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Parsons Entrepreneur Academy is a platform that empowers creative entrepreneurs like yourself to build sustainable businesses around your art. And we achieve this through our 3 pillars that include mentoring through our mentor platform, training through our courses, and community via our network. I'm excited to announce that since launching our platform globally this year, we were recently honored with Fast Company's on Fast Company's 2021 World Changing Ideas list. So thank you for joining us at this step of the journey, and we hope that you continue to tune in and go along with us. So this evening, I am delighted that we were able to collaborate with Chat Razdan, the CEO and founder of Care+Wear, and one of our amazing founding course authors on this conversation tonight. So Chat is the course author for our creative product development course. And he is actually inviting all of you into one of his weekly class sessions tonight. So you actually are getting a sample of what the experience is like to witness some of the amazing stories and lessons that come from amazing guest speakers that he invites into his class. So tonight we have 2 amazing fashion industry powerhouses joining Chat. So first is Unger, the president of Unger Design, also the chair Emerita of Parsons School of Design and advisor to the sustainable brand Line in the Sand, which is a new entrepreneurial collection that gives back to the ocean and cancer research. And they will be joined by Aimee Kestenberg, the Chief Creative Officer at Affordable Luxury Group. So for tonight's conversation, you will not only hear about their inspiring stories, but you'll also walk away with lessons that you can apply to run your creative business. And one of the key themes tonight that we're going to jump into revolves around protecting your intellectual property. So can you imagine going through the experience of losing the rights to your own name? Well, it can happen if you don't put the right legal steps in place. So you'll hear from our guests' personal stories and learn how they overcame these obstacles and have gone on to scale multi-million-dollar companies. So the conversation tonight will go on for 40 to 45 minutes, and it'll be followed by a 10 to 15-minute Q&A session. So if you would like to submit a question, please click on the Q&A button, and you'll find that at the bottom of your Zoom window. And our speakers will address your questions there, or they'll get to as many questions that they can possibly get to within the time given. And also at the end, we will be giving a special offer code that all of you who've joined can take advantage of for Chat's course. So please stay tuned to find out more about that. And on that note, I would like to welcome our speakers, Chat Razdan, Unger, and Aimee Kestenberg.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carly Ann. And I'm really honored today to have both Kay and Aimee join me. Carly Ann gave a really brief overview of who they are. I'm just going to quickly give an introduction of both of them and ask them what their favorite Parsons memory was. So Aimee, let's start with you. You are an award-winning designer, mother, wellness certified expert, and philanthropist, and you are dedicated to arming women with practical luxury designed to help them conquer their day. You're an industry leader and disruptor in the world of fashion. You are the creative force behind your namesake brand, Aimee Kestenberg, which you amazingly launched in 2013. You are redefining the meaning of affordable luxury, the collection of casual shapes engineered with practicality in mind, which immediately caught the eye of American retailers, including Nordstrom, which is where I actually still shop today, QVC, Shopbop, and more. As a result, your company is one of the fastest growing private companies in America, having landed on the prestigious Inc. 5000 list consecutively for the past 4 years, 2018 through 2021. You've been recognized throughout your career, being honored as one of the Forbes 30 Under 30 in 2014, and being a 2-time winner of the InStyle Independent Handbag Designer Awards, recognized by companies such as Swarovski and American Express. Most recently, you were presented the 2019 NPD Growth Driver Award by the esteemed Accessories Council at the Design Excellence Awards held at the Plaza Hotel in New York City. With the strategic mission of bringing problem solving practically merged with bold expression to areas of women's lives where she needs it most, you have successfully expanded the brand to include footwear, luggage, jewelry, eyewear, baby bags, and infant apparel over the past 3 years. So with that, you got to start at Parsons. What was your favorite Parsons memory?
I think it was really the friends I made. I think, you know, I never had, prior to Parsons, I really didn't have like-minded friends that were in the creative world that thought like I did. And I always felt very alienated because of that. And I think joining Parsons and being merged with what I like to call my people, I think I, you know, found connection in a way that I was really lacking in my life. That would be the biggest one. And then the second one would be when I got to meet Miss Unger. And we formed a beautiful bond, and she's mentored me for so many years and been such a very important person in my life, both personally and professionally. So I went with 2. I answered it twice. Sorry.
You're allowed to cheat because one of the 2 answers was Unger, and I too agree with you in terms of being an amazing force and mentor in your life. I don't know, Kay clearly never sleeps because she will always text you at 5 a.m. as well as at 2 a.m. And 90 times in between, and it's just incredible. For those of you that don't know, she is a fashion designer, entrepreneur, and philanthropist based in New York for more than 40 years. Her flattering feminine looks have made her one of America's most popular designers for first ladies, anchorwomen, businesswomen, partygoers, and bridal parties. After graduating the Parsons School of Design, Kay entered the fashion world in 1968 as a design assistant to Jeffrey Bean. 2 years later, she founded her own dress firm, Unger, the first of several successful global fashion concerns she both founded and managed, including the Gillian Group, AJ Bari, Unger New York, KJ's Pajamas, and Phoebe Couture. In 2012, she formed Unger Design as a means of focusing her boundless energy on unique design projects that benefit from her creative and leadership skills. She currently is consulting for Line in the Sand, a protective and active waterwear company committed to donating 100% of their profits to ocean and cancer organizations. She's actually doing a really fun competition with Katie Couric Media. And so if you tune in there, you have an opportunity to win some pretty amazing products. She also serves as a trustee of the New School and chair Emerita of Parsons School of Design, her alma mater. She has been a member of the Parsons School of Design Board of Governors since 2006, where she enthusiastically served as chairman from 2013 to 2020. I can tell you, I personally have a relationship with Parsons for only one person's reason, and that is Kay. In 2010, she founded her own foundation, the Kay Unger Family Foundation, where she now serves as chief executive officer. The foundation primarily provides scholarships and educational opportunities for underserved children talented in the arts. Her foundation also supports existing foundations for cancer care and research. She also is the co-chair of Fashion for the Frontlines, a New York City-based task force that was created in response to COVID-19 with a singular goal to secure PPE for frontline medical workers and successfully help save millions of lives by doing that. She currently serves on the board of directors for the New York Stem Cell Foundation and the executive board for Retailers United. She's actively involved as a project champion and board member for the Promise Project. Longtime board member of a lot of other things, basically, is what we're gonna get to. Most importantly, she's born and raised in Chicago. She has lived in New York throughout her career. She lives with her partner, David Rubin, and she has 2 sons and 6 grandchildren, hopefully one of whom might even make an appearance here today. But Kay, can you share what your favorite memory was from Parsons? Kay, you're on mute.
Sorry, such a long bio. Glad I didn't have to say all that. Anyway, it's so interesting because graduating Parsons in 1968 was very different than when Aimee went there. We had no community. It was very individual and pretty scrappy at the time on East 54th Street. So I also have 2 memories that are kind of funny. So Chad can appreciate this. Coming from the Midwest, I went to Parsons, and that very first week, picture Mad Men. I arrived at Parsons with short white gloves and a pillbox hat and a really strict little dress. And I remember because everybody looked at me like I was nuts. And I'm happy to say within a week, I had multiple braids and I was truly a Parsons student. I think the other fabulous experience I was lucky to have was when I went to Parsons, we had critics, famous designers. And the designer I was lucky enough to work with my last semester at Parsons was Norman Durrell. Now he's long gone. You probably have heard of the perfume, etc. Well, I was lucky enough to be a student chosen to work at a big gala like the Parsons Benefit in honor of Norman Durrell, and they had fabulous printed tablecloths. So at the end of the evening, we're helping clean up, and I look around and we talk to the fellow students, and the tablecloths were there. So I decided, why not adaptable reuse? I took a few of the tablecloths. Then for my final project at Parsons for Norman Durrell, I presented a design made out of the tablecloth and told him the story. He loved it. It was a wonderful project. And the drawings of that are in the archives at Parsons. So that was a fabulous experience.
That is awesome. And Kay actually got to be our real life design hero when we designed a patient gown as part of a class at Parsons, where she got to not only be the mentee, but for us was the mentor. So it's a cool full circle. So let's start with kind of a few questions that have come in earlier. First and foremost, what led you to create your company and brand? What brought it to life? Aimee, why don't we start with you?
My brand was really founded when I was at Parsons, and it didn't really start with a brand for me. It started with a product. I was, in design school. I loved fashion. I was, living on a dime and couldn't afford to buy a beautiful designer bag, like a lot of my peers. And I needed a backpack because I had developed these shoulder injuries from carrying all my supplies to school. And I needed a backpack, and all the ones on the market were very much just either knockoffs of other designers, or they looked like a little kid's backpack going to school. And I was a young career woman that wanted to look cool and fashionable while having the functionality that I needed with something being designer, but lightweight, but still durable, and check all the parts of my life that I needed in a backpack. Didn't exist on the market. So I made it my thesis project to design a backpack that was my perfect backpack to wear to school. I designed it. It was very well received. And then at the Parsons end of year ceremony, at the event that we had for fashion, it was showcased, and a lot of people were attracted to it that were in attendance. And I ended up pretty much graduating, hiring a random showroom, pretending and making it look like it was my offices, even though there was no offices. I had a little room in the back that me and 3 other people that I had convinced to come start with me were hiding back there. And on a dime, we created this, DIY little showroom, and I had that bag and had made a few pieces of them and showcased it, and cold called buyers to come see my collection. And when they came in, they loved it. And we got orders immediately, which didn't really happen for designers, the no-name designers like I was at that time. But usually the hardest part is getting them through the door. But because I had won the handbag designer awards a couple of times, they were interested. Because I had gone to Parsons, they were interested. They wanted to see what I was about. So we had everyone come in, and it was shocking. We were expecting maybe one person to show up, but everyone showed up, from Bergdorf's to Norman to Neiman's to Nordstrom, QVC. And we got orders on the spot for this bag. And that was really how my journey began. It was out of really a need for a product more so than a brand itself. And only recently, 6 years later, have I started to really focus on building the brand, because I was off building product at that time. And what's my next product? What's my next bag? I never had the time to really dive in the way most brands develop more traditionally and look at, okay, what's our brand DNA? What do we stand for? That's something that I've only done in the past year or two, because I've just been so focused on building great product.
I love it. Products always come first and foremost, and I think that's a great lesson. Kay, how about you? What led you to create your company and brand, and what brought it to life initially?
It was a little different, obviously, than Aimee. Again, we're back in 1970, no internet. I didn't even know what a brand was, but I was working for a company called Trina Norell. And I was designing Trina boutique and Trina sportswear. And I had a phenomenal reception, kind of like Aimee. I was very well received on the cover of Harper's, Vogue, all those kinds of things. But unfortunately, the boss's wife was so envious and jealous of the fact that I got all this publicity, none of which I went out for, not like you would today. I just wanted to do a good job. So eventually I left the company, went to another company who said I could do anything I wanted, but eventually I was making tracksuits, or kind of the era of juicy couture. And so I would say what led me to start my own company, I had no interest in ever owning my own company, but it was 2 things. One, creative freedom. I thought, if I have my own company, I'm not going to be making tracksuits. I can make dresses, which is what I was sort of known for. And it would be incredible. But anyway, the other thing that happened is my father passed away while I was at Parsons. And 2 years later, I get a check. I didn't get any money when he passed away. All of a sudden, I get a check for $25,000. And I had just had a meeting with Liberty of London, which then was not terribly popular. I mean, only Casherelle was making Liberty of London shirts, and they came to me and said, "We love your color sense, you're a real artist. Could you start using our fabric?" This is how much I did not know about business. I went to Liberty of London. I handed them to $25,000, and I picked out $25,000 assorted fabric, had it sent to my living room. And because I'd always learned you have to keep, be friendly and nice to everybody, I had a wonderful collection of people who knew me, even people who delivered dresses from Vogue and so on. They were now editors. And consequently, I kept my day job, and at night I started making clothes in one of the factories that I'd been using before. And I used to pack them in my apartment, get on my bicycle, where Bloomingdale's was absolutely willing to take them. And my deal was they had to pay me when I delivered, which is something you don't hear of. So what I did not realize, although I'd spent all this money on fabric, I really had accomplished something called dating, in that I never had to pay for fabric again. My collection and my design was desirable, so the stores were willing to pay on delivery, and I had cash flow so that I could pay the factories. Eventually, I bit the bullet and got a little place on 38th Street and started my business, but I knew nothing about business, and we will talk more about that later. You could tell the way I handed over the check, but look how it turned out. I actually had cash flow.
I love that. In business school, they always taught us cash is more important than your mother, and to be thinking about cash flow. And I think that's such an important lesson for everyone to be thinking about from the early days. All right, so let's get, Kay, to your point, let's get to the heart of why we're here today. You both have had experiences where trademarks and IP ownership has impacted your ownership of your name and your brand. Can you share your story, and kind of more importantly than the story itself is probably the lessons for all of the students that are here listening today? You're muted again.
I'm happy to start, or Aimee, whatever you wish. Here's what happened to me. I think because of the experience I explained to you of having the wife of my boss being very envious of me, I started this business. They called Unger, all Liberty of London prints and everything, for creative freedom. Well, the fact of the matter is, because I really didn't know what I was doing, I knew how to make clothes and I knew how to make them fit, and I knew how to sell them, but I didn't know the back end. Consequently, two men that I had known in my past job called me and wanted to join my company and be my partner. I had no idea why. I said, "You're making $100,000 a year. Why come to me?" They said, "Because we'll always be salesmen." So they came into my company literally over a weekend, and we were shipping product. And I purposely did not name the company after me. We called it Gillian. Then it was St. Gillian, then became Gillian Group. So my name wasn't even on it until later. And I had no clue that I should trademark my name. Consequently, many, many years later, after building a $100 million company, my partner embezzled the money and we went bankrupt. And consequently, we started a new company. And I was not allowed to be a partner until the bankruptcy was cleared. So my lawyer gave me bad advice, and he said, when I was able to buy into my company, it was worth, millions. I couldn't afford that at the time. He said, "Well, they've been wonderful to you. Why don't you just give them your name?" I said, "Well, they have been nice, and I can't imagine ever starting over again. That sounds like a good idea." And that's exactly what I did. I gave them my personal name, Kay Unger. And although I worked for the company and became a partner and so on and so forth, here's what could have happened. You should always take your name and put it in a shell company and have it trademarked. Then you can license it for free to whomever you want, to your partners. and license it for free. But then someday when you want to use it on your own or do a license deal where you get money back all the time, you own your name, nobody else can own it. So to this day, everybody thinks I own it, but I don't.
It's quite the story and so many important lessons there. Aimee, I know you mentioned to me that you actually were able to learn ahead of time because of the experience that Kay went through. Can you kind of share your story and again, more in terms of lessons for the group rather than necessarily exact details, but would love to have you share your side as well.
So, for me, like I assume many designers or entrepreneurs in general, having somebody believe in your vision of what you want to create is very exciting. And when you're a creative mind, I find, and this is more generally speaking, that generally you're not as trained in the business and legal side as you are in the creative side. So for me, I had a little bit of business knowledge, but nothing compared to what I really needed to know when it came to the legalities and true business of starting, growing a brand, taking investors, and that whole world of partnering with anyone. So graduated Parsons. I had this amazing collection that I was so excited to launch. I had all these orders on my own, but I had no money to fund them. So I started looking for an investor. And what I realized was I was something I didn't know then was the importance of how careful you need to be with who you take an investment from, who you partner with, and the legalities and contracts and the details of an agreement that is formed with anyone when it comes to partnering in your vision, in your project, in your name, in your designs, whatever it is. That process for me, I was so excited to have my own brand, to have someone come up to me and say, we love your designs. I'd love to partner with you and fund your vision. I was so excited that I was blind to anything else. I didn't know, it didn't occur to me that someone would not be kind and truthful and do the right thing. They call it Shark Tank for a reason, because you're gonna get bitten, okay? So what I learned was the hard way was I had been presented with a contract that in hindsight was a very bad contract that I had given to a lawyer to read who was not the right type of lawyer. It was just a friend that was a lawyer. And I figured all lawyers are the same because I knew nothing about law. It was not an IP lawyer or someone who specialized in that field, which is absolutely necessary when it comes to IP conversations. Having someone that is not a IP specialist-based lawyer is not acceptable in this arena. You really need someone that specializes in that field for many reasons. But I signed a bad contract that I didn't realize at the time was bad. And what I learned from it was usually when someone invests in you and you sign these type of agreements and you're just starting out, everybody's focused on the downfall. Everyone's focused on what if it doesn't work? How do I get my money back? How do I get out of this? It's very rare that people focus on what if it succeeds? What if it does really well? Then what happens? How do we divide the profits? How do we work together as partners on the business side of everything? And that was something that I didn't think about. I had faith in myself, but I didn't know any better than to focus on, well, if this does really well, then here's what we should be doing and here's what the agreement should say. So I signed this horrible contract. I start working. The brand takes off. We're off to the races. Within 1 year, it was like out of a movie. It was a dream year I never thought could happen. We're on Forbes 30 under 30. We're, all doors Nordstrom, where I launched my first TV show on QVC, where the #1 selling handbag brand there. Like it just exploded. And this is a brand, keep in mind, that had no branding platform, no marketing spend. It was complete organic growth. We're in Vogue, we're in Harper's, we're everywhere. And I didn't know how to keep up with it. So I'm making a very modest salary. I'm working day and night, not sleeping, so unhealthy, 7 days a week, never stopping. And by the end of the year, I realized, similar to Kay's story, there were a lot of things happening that shouldn't have been. And long story short, the brand name ended up in bankruptcy court. I had to fight for the brand name. And luckily, in my case, with some advice from Kay, and something I'm going to talk about, which is a very key thing I learned from Kay, that was a huge piece of what enabled me to win ownership of my brand name in order to continue building my brand and own my name. But that took a massive fight of a year of blood, sweat, tears, and a whole lot of money that I have recently just finished paying off 6 years later. That was one of the hardest times, if not the hardest time of my life, and the toughest thing I ever went through. And I didn't realize the importance of your name. And the bigger lesson that I didn't realize, which, you know, I had coffee with Kay during going through this process, and she had kind of explained to me that I didn't know that someone could own what we call likeness. Now, what likeness means, because this is a really important thing for everyone to understand, especially if you're ever wanting to do something namesake, it's really tied to namesake, is that someone can own the rights to your persona, your voice, your pictures, your videos, your social media, without even being tied to your name. So they could own your name, but not own all those things that I just mentioned, which falls under the bracket of likeness. Or they could own your likeness and not own your name, which means they may not own your name, but they could own Aimee or AK and still have the rights, if they own your likeness, to use all these parts of your presence. So that piece of information was invaluable for me, because what I realized was this person didn't own my likeness. And with not owning my likeness, what use would my brand name be, Aimee Kestenberg, if you can't post a picture of me, use my voice, talk about me as a person? It's namesake. It's useless. So likeness is this term that is generally pushed for with anyone that ever partners with you, because they always want to own this piece. It's a very important piece for them to own. But to Kay's point, this is something that should never be shared. This is something that, unless you're getting an offer for $100 million plus for your brand and you decide to part with that at that time and you're set for life, like, you do not part with your likeness. So this is something that should be protected in a separate entity, that an IP lawyer can teach you about what that means when we say separate entity, exactly what that means, and how to protect that in a way where you can license it out to different people, whether it's for a set fee, which you can work with licensing teams on and teach you about. That's a whole nother world, the world of licensing. But moral of the story is, you should, in my opinion, if you're ever thinking that you may even possibly want to ever do something namesake, for $12, go to GoDaddy.com, buy your name, own your name, so that you always have that URL. You can get it for free on social. If your name is taken on social, do something similar, but know that you own your social presence and your e-com presence for your name, for in the case that you ever even think about wanting to do something with it. It's very important to own. You don't need to trademark it if you're not actively working in business with your name. There is a loophole in the sense of IP law where somebody actually can't launch a product or company with your exact name without your permission, or you have the ability to debate it. and fight it if somebody does and happens to have the same name. There's a lot of different things that go on in this world that an IP lawyer can tell you about, but it also is expensive to trademark a name. So if you're not actively using it, I don't recommend trademarking it at this time until you are getting closer to actively using that name in some sense. But however, I think it's very important to own it on those platforms I just mentioned, as well as just having a knowledge about what it means when it comes to likeness and branding and taking on a partner of any kind. I feel like we all, especially if you're just out of school or fresh out of college, these are things a lot of the time we're not taught about. And it's something that hopefully will be a big piece of learning from this entrepreneurial program with Chat. So I'm very excited about the program. And this is something that Parsons is now offering, which is so badly needed to really educate designers and entrepreneurs on this piece of the business side of their products and their ideas and their dreams.
This is great. So many insights from both of you just from that alone. So let's talk about let's fast forward to the present. So obviously you both have overcome some pretty significant challenges. Can you talk to us about what you're doing now to overcome any challenges you faced in the past? And then Miguel from our class actually asks, what would you have potentially done differently to avoid any future issues going forward?
Do you want me to answer that first?
Yeah, you're off mute first, so why don't we go with you this time?
So I wouldn't change anything, to be honest. The hardship of what I've gone through has defined me. And without the power of the lessons I've learned, I wouldn't be where I am, and I wouldn't have the knowledge I have, and I wouldn't be able to protect the people I love the most. So having the experiences, even though they were so painful and some of the hardest of my entire life, and I definitely aged 10 years from them, I will say that without them, I wouldn't be able to be here talking to you and protecting you from these things that I've gone through. I always feel that lessons are best learned, but I also think that there are certain lessons that don't really need to be always learned individually. And sometimes it's great to have someone that can protect you with the power of knowledge in a way that may allow you to save yourself or your company or your brand or your money or your time in a way that would really allow you to propel forward and make better decisions and better informed decisions as you go forward. So I wouldn't change the fact that I went through to hell and back, let's just say. The lessons were invaluable, and they made me who I am, and I'm so much stronger because of them.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I have the same thoughts. It's one of those things that you go through 5 billion different issues that come up as an entrepreneur, and looking back on it, it makes you even prouder of what you've done. And I think Kay is a perfect example of someone that has lost a lot, and she's used it as a way to educate others and use her lessons as a platform to really improve the lives, Aimee, for you and me, which I think is pretty incredible. Kay, how about you? You obviously have had a lot of experiences, and as I said, you've helped educate all of us. But is there anything that you wish you had done differently, and kind of how you're thinking about protecting yourself in the future going forward?
Kind of like Aimee, it's interesting all the strife I went through, not only going bankrupt because of it, because in those days there wasn't the help, especially for a woman. It was really, really challenging. And I was one of the very, very few women in the fashion industry, more so today, that actually owned her own business where it wasn't owned by somebody else. And that's why I could sort of help Aimee tell her she could own it. She had to fight for it. I think perhaps from the very beginning, even when I started my company with the Liberty of London Fabrics, one of the things when I look back or that I wish I'd done is fought harder and longer to not bring in partners. That's one of the things I want to talk about. Aimee mentioned it briefly. Everybody thinks you have to bring in partners. And yes, you get excited. And I felt I had no business background. Of course, I was going to bring in these two guys who knew sales and everything. But it's like a marriage. You know, you got to live together before you get married. You've got to see what these people are like. And what I suggest that you learn, that I learned, is that really see where they live. Go out to dinner with them. Get in a taxi. See how they treat the driver. See how they treat the waiter. See how they, treat their spouse, etc. I didn't do that with the people who were my partners. And when I finally did, I would have never gone into partnership, just the way you might not marry someone. So there's other ways. Nowadays, you can fundraise. And I also suggest very much friends and family before you go out and get investors. But my dad taught me something, and he died young, but he said, you're not a true success sometimes until you've seen the bottom. And when you work your way back up and you pull yourself up by the bootstraps and you get to the top again, what it gives you is that strength. And I feel all of us have lived through that, and it's scary. And you think you might end up on the street and so on. But my way of dealing with it and dealing with loss of any type is to give back and help others. And because I had been through this, it was easy for me to tell Chat what to do and Aimee what to do, then sometimes have the fight to go through it myself. And I had a wonderful career and many wonderful businesses, but I have to say there's so many different solutions. And I call that phase one of my life. And phase two was when I got out of my company and became chairman of Parsons and got to work with all of you and continued the help and giving back. And now working on line in the sand with the most wonderful founder, where I'm not the boss, but I respect her and feel that there are wonderful people in our industry, and she's one of them. And I feel so lucky at this I'm not that old, but at this stage of my life to sort of start phase three actually that's the best form of looking back and knowing all of you. I mean, we've worked on projects together, all of us. Chat on Fashion for the Front Lines. Aimee was here filming her collection and so on. And that's a gift. And all of you who are learning from this class, it's so important. I know I've said to Parsons and the new school, Cordoza's across the street. Why can't we have a law program? And now we're starting the entrepreneurial, with this wonderful, wonderful program. The Academy, nothing is more dear to my heart for all of you to learn what I didn't know. Learn how to read a spreadsheet. You don't have to do the math, but you have to know how to do it. And especially as a woman.
No, I love that. And if this is phase three, knowing you've got probably 10 more phases left in you. So excited to see all that continues. Cara from our class actually asks, what are some specific, so we've talked a little about trademarks, and both of you have created amazing products and companies creating amazing products. How have you thought about contracting with manufacturers in regards to protecting your trademarks and patents? And we're getting a lot of questions in regards to protecting with foreign manufacturers in a time when internationalization or globalization has happened so much more. How would you think about what should people be looking out for? What should these young designers be thinking about before they go ahead and sign a contract?
Katie, you want to go first?
One thing I just want to bring up, and Aimee and Chat, you can probably even talk about it further. And that is one, wherever possible, nowadays, if possible, don't give up on America. I feel very, very strongly, especially after COVID, that there are so many companies of so many different kinds, whether it was furniture companies making PPE and now making other things, that there's great, it's not just New York, it's a whole United States. That doesn't mean you can't produce globally. It is much harder to trust people. I was very lucky. I had a wonderful partner, the best one in Korea. That was how I managed to do such gorgeous prints. And he made beautiful product. But when he passed away, it got pretty sketchy. So go see the factories and be very, very cautious. But also there's something else happening in the world, and that's NFT, Bitcoin, and all this. I keep trying to understand it fully, and it's a way supposedly that you can protect your design. I don't understand it perfectly yet, but I want us to learn about it. And I believe me, if Parsons Entrepreneur Academy can give a course on it, I will take it, because it all sounds wonderful, but it's kind of very intangible. And Bitcoin and all of this, it's important that you learn, because through an NFT, you can often protect your IP and your designs. So my suggestion is look into it, and I'm sure Aimee's more involved in the global production, as Chat is, and can tell you more.
Yeah, Aimee, do you want to share your insights as well?
Sure. So I have a couple of different answers to that depending on where the question is coming from. So if you are American based and you're a brand that has started in the US and you're now looking to either manufacture offshore and sell the product offshore, which is a different piece of it, right? There's the manufacturing wing, and then there's the actual sales part. There were really two questions there. So there's that. And then there's if you're actually based overseas, which I see some of our audience is, and they're looking to launch their brands in their home countries, which happens to not be the United States, that's a different avenue, right? So starting with the answer on based in America, you're an American brand or company, you're looking to manufacture offshore and then sell offshore. Regarding manufacturing, it's a tough one. Just to give you an example, my company, for example, has very strong relationships internationally all over the world, everywhere from Brazil, India, Myanmar, Vietnam, China, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, Bali, Indonesia. Like we have people everywhere. And even for a brand and company like mine, at this current juncture, it's extremely challenging in the manufacturing world, period. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it has put such a strife and weight on the manufacturing industry globally that it's a very specific situation and time that we're in right now when it comes to overseas production. I'm finding that if you're not, and this isn't to deter you or to in any way advise you that you should not do it, but it's just the reality of today. If you are not a major brand, or generally speaking, or ordering a significant amount of product, most offshore factories right now and obviously depends on your industry. I'm talking from the accessory industry, which is where I specialize. They're not going to take a new brand or company in a small way right now. So to Kay's point, I would actually focus, if you're a smaller brand looking to just make a few pieces, a small line, and when I say small, it's anything under 100 pieces. I would look, because I do know that there are options in New York, in the United States, with people that do it. And, sometimes it can be more pricey, but honestly, it ends up being the same, because when you're doing those small quantities overseas, they're going to charge you a lot for the smaller quantity generally. And then you've got to factor in overseas shipping costs and a bunch of other things, customs issues, materials, MOQs, which means, for anyone that doesn't know what an MOQ is, that means the amount of raw materials and product needed to produce what it is you're trying to make. It's a bigger conversation, and it could be a topic. Supply chain could be a topic on its own, but just in a nutshell, that's kind of, I guess, where I'm going when you want to manufacture. Unless you have a backer, or you have someone that's already, and that you trust, that is already manufacturing overseas, that would be willing to help you do that. Or you find the right partner and you take your time to do it, and you don't, it's like a partner's like a marriage. You wouldn't just marry someone without dating them. It's the same concept. So you can go that route as well. Friends and family is always an option when it comes to, if it is an option for you to try and get some help financially in order to do that. But there's a lot of different avenues you can take, and we can talk more about it. Or, obviously feel free to write to me on my Instagram at Aimee Kestenberg, and I would be happy to answer personalized questions. That's that avenue. Now, when it comes to sales, when you're looking to, there were a few questions regarding IP, protecting your trademark internationally. To give you another example, Aimee Kestenberg was registered in Korea, not by me. And somebody that I had met with one of the factories I was working with went out behind my back and registered my name and started building and designing product in Korea under my name, with thinking that I wouldn't find out. Now, the way that went was you're offshore. So you're not using the US legal system to enforce trademarks, IP law. It doesn't matter. Now, when you go overseas and you're hitting, especially China, forget it. China IP is like trying to win a war with one person. Doesn't happen. Okay, you're never going to win that war. Take it as well, I shouldn't say never, but highly unlikely. It's like a wildfire when it gets into IP in China. So I will talk to Korea though, which is a little bit easier. So the way I dealt with this is I had my legal team in the United States find a partner of theirs obviously I trust my team here, and they handled that for me in the sense of finding the right legal team to correspond with in Korea, who then went after this person, and in Korea, using obviously the Korean legal system and abiding by their legalities, and was able to get the name revoked from this person and registered to me. I obviously had to pay for that trademark ownership, but what I did realize is I have to trademark my name in any potential country I want to work in. And sometimes that's challenging because it's expensive. You have to show that you have intent to launch a brand within a certain short time frame in that country in order to protect that trademark. It's a whole thing. But long story short, we're now protected pretty much worldwide. And as you grow as a brand, or, these are the things that you need to think about kind of early on. What is the big vision of where I see this going? And that doesn't mean it needs to happen today, but having an idea of, and kind of a mind map, literally a mind map on a piece of paper of like, this is the ultimate vision of what, if I could move my magic wand, make anything happen for what I want to do with my brand, what would it look like? That is something that you want to discuss with the people that are close to you, that you trust, that you decide to partner with or bring into working with you, and have them help you execute that vision. What are the things we're going to have to do to protect ourselves when it comes to the legal world and the business world? So that's, I guess, the answer to my viewpoint on selling internationally and IP protection and trademarks internationally in a nutshell.
I love it. And you brought up a lot of great points, both of you. Kay, you talked about visiting a factory. That's so important to get to, especially your first time, the first manufacturer that you're working with. They're going to become your family. To what Aimee was saying at the early, when we started, of how you're never sleeping, you're always working. That's true. And you need to find a factory that you get to know. So we manufactured in China, but I went and visited the factory and got to know the owner, had a weekly call with the CEO. That was super important to build up that awareness and support. And then Aimee, you were also talking about protecting yourself globally. We're actually currently in a situation where someone in Australia has decided to literally copy our first product and manufacture it with his brand name. And he literally took samples from us in 2016. And I've seen a lot of these questions come up.
No, don't judge all Australians.
No,
They're not all like him. I
we have
promise.
not. We have gone to the Australian government, and
Bad Aussie.
they, to their credit, have said, we will help you get in here and beat this person because legally you're not going to be able to protect yourself. And so for all of you asking, there's been about 50 questions on trademarks and IP. The short answer is check out the USPTO website for the US at least. There's a lot of free legal clinics that will actually do the work for you for free. And so to a lot of you sending us messages about how money is limited, et cetera, we feel your pain. And the legal clinics are amazing and do great work and are overseen by a large law firm. So let's ask some questions from, I know we have limited time left, but one person in particular is near and dear to me because she's not only a student here, but she's actually a member of my team at Care+Wear. She's a Parsons alum, Helena Wang, that has joined us after being a part of our class at Parsons back in 2017. And she's talking about, and this is a common question I get asked, is what advice would you give to designers whose student work has been copied by an established brand before they could go ahead and patent their work? Besides the obvious answer of talk to a lawyer, are there any other tips or feedback that you might have? And I know a few other people have been worried about their work getting copied before they could get a patent. What suggestions would you two have on that?
Chat, I think that this is a very specific question that requires more intel to what the product is.
Yeah.
Are we talking an accessory? Like, what if we're able to speak a little bit more candidly to Helena's product?
In terms of, as we think about, say as you were creating your bag at for the showcase, if someone had gone out and brought that to life before you could, how might you, looking back on it now, because to your point, I'm not sure that you would have had the same perspective back when you were in school. Looking back on it now, though, what steps would you have considered or thought about before doing so?
So there's a couple of things, right? Mm-hmm. So if it had happened from a panelist that was within the school that was hired to judge the brand, to judge the class, and had essentially taken the design and launched it, I would inform the school immediately, and the school will take action against that person. That's one. Two, it has happened to me. When my first backpack design, it was called the Tamitha backpack. It was hugely successful, and I got knocked off pretty much immediately. Walked into the mall on Long Island in Roosevelt Field and saw a store whose entire window front was this backpack, and my jaw dropped, and I couldn't believe they got away with like an exact knockoff of my design. And, obviously this was a little bit later in my journey, so I was able to press charges legally against them. And they were put out, it was removed and withdrawn. But going back to now, what I know now, had it happened earlier on in my career, there's really two answers. There really are. From what I know, there are only two answers to this. And one is that you either can sue the person, which costs a lot of money, okay? Or you can take it on the chin, proceed the way you were going to proceed anyway, And there's two things that can happen. Either you keep going and you keep coming up with the next best product, keep pushing forward, put out your design anyway, that if they copied you or not, doesn't matter. Put it out anyway, because you know what? If they try and sue you, you'll be able to show that you actually sketched and did it first, which is what happens. So if they did come back and say, listen, you know, we had this design first, and you know that you did that design at a certain time frame, you can prove that with sketches being dated at a certain time, emailed and developed with the school at a certain time, you'll be able to prove that you actually founded that design prior to this person putting it in market, in which case you would win that lawsuit with a great lawyer. But either way, everything legally related is expensive. There's no way around it, and it's kind of the shitty part of the world of business and law, is that people can sue for anything. They don't even need to be right. They don't even need to be honest or truthful or correct in what it is they're suing for. The fact of the matter is that it costs money to defend yourself, period. What I've done when in a lot of situations that this has happened to me, I've pushed forward, I've designed exactly what I was designing anyway, and I kept going. I never looked back. I never let them take my energy, because the fact of the matter is that the energy you're using to focus on them and the product that they may have knocked off from you, you created it. It's your baby, and you clearly have the knowledge and intelligence to keep pushing forward with other products like it, if it's in the world of fashion. Obviously, if it's something that's more product design, that's a different animal. That you know, maybe that does warrant, you know, some sort of legal proceedings if it's something that's, you know, a one-off product that has been knocked off from, you know, a technology standpoint, or it depends on the product. But talking strictly fashion, I would just keep going personally. But sorry, I'd be happy to answer. If you do want to share with me at Aimee Kestenberg, I'd be happy to answer you more specifically to what it is that you guys are looking for.
I think also, Aimee, and chat to Helen, that one, have faith in yourself and your design. So this used to happen to me all the time in fashion. It happens all the time. And quite honestly, the one important thing, very important, that many important things that Aimee said, you can spin and be angry and everything, but you can look at it as a compliment and move forward. I had somebody who copied me all the time. I went into their showroom in Dallas and I said, "Hi, I'm Kay Unger, your designer." But jokingly, but the funny part was we're not always fabulous all the time. I've had wonderful years, great collections, and I've had some really lousy ones. Well, you know what? They're going to copy you when you're lousy too. They just won't know the difference. And it happens, and you do have to move forward. The only thing I will suggest, and chat, you know about this, like with Lucy Jones and special hardware that for bags and so on. Lucy designs for people in wheelchairs. If you design a special hardware that is essential for your product, then it's pretty important to pay for the design patent or file for it, because you will be copied. But when it comes, there's nothing new in clothing. There really isn't. So I suggest you get over it. But Aimee's right. It has happened certain times in situations with school. Absolutely. Tell your faculty, tell your deans, they will deal with it.
The other thing, Kay, you bring up a good point, and we talk a lot about this in our course, of the type of patent that they might have filed, a design patent versus a utility patent. So if it's a design patent, one of the big lessons I've learned is you can make some minor modification and then it's not covered under the patent. Whereas, and I'm obviously grossly oversimplifying this, so please make sure you research more, people, before you do this. But whereas for utility patent, it's a lot harder to copy. So for Care+Wear, almost all of our patents are actually utility patents, because we do have a medical benefit and requirement for using it. And so that's a way that we're able to go through. We are going way over, but I love this one last question that I think is a great question. And I don't know if either of you have watched the new Netflix series on Halston, but
I have. I'm loving it.
Yeah, I'm 3 in, and it's just been great. As we think about, so he's actually talking a lot about his IP situation, and when you think about how they portrayed his IP situation, do you think that telling the story on such a large platform can help future artists? And how can we drive more awareness, right? We had almost 600 people sign up for this. This is clearly an issue that a lot of people are really cognizant of and thinking about often. By all the questions we've gotten today, it's something that everyone's very worried about. What can we do? What can we do to drive more awareness of this? And then lastly, as you both answer that, I would like for you to ask this group for any favors that you might have, anything that they can do for you, because I think that that's truly really important as well.
Wow. Certainly, this is a very difficult, problem. Certainly, the trademarks, etc. I know. I was reading the chat finally, where a lot of this can be protected in certain NFTs and other situations, and I do believe. Look, I know what we have to teach. I don't know how to do all of it, and I still want to learn. So I think very important is there's so much new technology with your, the way digital is happening and the way you're selling to your customers. I think it needs more research, and we should come back to it with new ideas about how to handle it. Maybe both of you have other ideas of how it's done. And what do I need? What would I like from all of you? Certainly, I'd love you to look at lineinthesand.com and support product that is healthy and keeps you out of the sun, etc. But more importantly, I want to let you know through another organization, Retailers United, that we give grants to all of you in the wholesale and retail business to help you stay after the pandemic, to help you get mentorship and funding. So look at retailersunited.com. We are happy to help.
And Aimee, how about you?
Regarding driving awareness, I feel that doing talks like we're doing right now is what really helps drive awareness. Doing these free online webinars that people can sign up for to learn about the topics in which they really want to learn about and be able to ask those questions, and have panelists like ourselves that have gone through different experiences and are able to share those wins and falls is really invaluable. Had I had this conversation and joined this panel prior to going through the things I went through, I would have been a lot smarter and been able to probably make some changes on my path. Second part would be, simple things like having a email blast go out with key points of like, hey, did you know about likeness? What does this mean? Little things with kind of really key important pillars for the biggest ongoing mistakes designers and entrepreneurs make when it comes to partnering or their IP. The next part would be continuing these talks with other specialists in the field. So for example, we could do something like this, and the next time invite some great IP lawyers, a panel of IP lawyers that specialize exactly in a lot of these questions being asked. That can really answer our audience and everybody tuning in on their specific questions that they have, and how to exactly go about each step along the way. But ultimately, I think spreading awareness socially and being very open and vulnerable and sharing your experiences, your challenges, your wins and your falls is where people are going to learn, and continuing to have great platforms like you and Kay have created tonight that really allows everyone to learn openly about these different challenges and how they can learn from them. And of course, like I said, if you have any additional questions, feel free to write to me at Aimee Kestenberg on Instagram or Facebook, and I'd be happy to answer them And last but not least, I think we're actually going to be launching in about 6 months' time a grant program as well for entrepreneurs within Aimee Kestenberg. So make sure to keep an eye out and apply for that. We'll be doing a $10,000 to $15,000 grant to someone each year to sponsor them and their business.
That's amazing. I love that. And before I turn it over to Carly-Ann, I just want to thank you both for taking the time to share all your amazing insights. Hopefully this is just the beginning of all the conversations that people can have and start to be thinking. And I would take both of these amazing women up on their offers to help. I can tell you for a fact that Kay, for better or worse, takes phone calls from me at random times all the time.
I'll take your phone call too, Chat.
And Aimee will too, even better. I got to warn you though, I call randomly. Kay actually will be like, I haven't heard from you, stranger. What do you need now? Because she's gotten so used to it. But thank you both so much. I know our students are really, really fortunate to hear and learn from you both. And I know I'm personally very fortunate to have the opportunity to get to know both of you as well. Carly-Ann, I will now turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Chat. Thank you so much, Kay and Aimee, for such a powerful conversation. We appreciate your openness and vulnerability. This is why we launched the Parsons Entrepreneur Academy. So thank you all so much. And thank you, Chat, for leading the conversation tonight. And hopefully this is just the beginning of, many engagements that we'll do with you all together. So for everyone who tuned into this conversation tonight, if you would like to join Chat's full course, where you'll get more amazing lessons like the lessons you learned tonight from our great speakers, please look in the chat. We are going to be providing you with a link. So the link is Safeguard. So if you click on the registration link that's in the chat, you can apply that code and you'll receive 50% off of Chat's full 8-week course. And if you really want to take advantage of the code, it won't last forever. This is going to end on Saturday, May 29th at 11:59 p.m. And this course, it's going to start on June 10th. So if you are interested in signing up for the course, please do so by May 29th at 11:59 p.m. All right, well, thank you all again so much. And I'm looking forward to continuing to have great conversations and engagements with you. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.